In this week's video, we're going to be looking at industrial control system security analyst roles and what that job really looks like. Talking to an expert, Don Weber from Cutaway Security. Coming up. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This week we are going to be talking to Don Weber about industrial control system security, which is an absolute unique kind of paradigm within the cybersecurity community. So a lot of cybersecurity related jobs are IT corporate focused, and industrial control systems just aren't that. They're industrial controls. They have their own protocols, their own kind of culture, and you're dealing with a whole host of different kind of personality types in addition when you're executing that role. Now, really quick, if you're new here, this is Simply Cyber, a YouTube channel designed for helping individuals take their cyber career further, faster. I'm Jerry Ozier, your host, and we talk about cybersecurity stuff every Monday. Now, this week I'm interviewing Don, so we're going to get right into it, but he teaches the SANS Industrial Control Systems class, and he's an absolute expert on the topic. He does a lot of different work for Cutaway Security, but industrial control systems is part of that portfolio. So I will preface this by saying we recorded this a couple weeks ago when, basically the whole country, the whole world was like moving into remote work because of COVID, and the bandwidth, it was just bad for the communication. So you'll see in the video there is some choppiness to the video. The audio quality is pristine and that's perfect, but the video is a little choppy. So I've tried to add a lot of B-roll cut-ins to break it up and make it a little bit better, but just bear with me. If you can't take it because of the choppiness, then just listen to it, because Don drops a lot of valuable knowledge and information so people can really appreciate what it is that the industrial control system security analyst would be doing and how to really get that job. So let's just get right into the interview. All right, cool. So we're here with Don Weber talking about ICS security analyst 1 type roles. So Don, thanks for joining us. Can you, for the audience, can you just give us a little bit of background on yourself?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Joe, for having me. Right now I work for myself in a company called Cutaway Security, and what I do is provide information security services to companies, not particularly or not dedicated necessarily to operational technology environments or industrial control system environments, but really anything. But with my background, some of the security research that I've done before, my teaching for SANS, I kind of do tend to focus on providing security services, whether it's penetration testing, but really security assessments of the OT environments and providing those services to different companies.
So as far as the kind of ICS analyst role goes, I mean, I personally feel like a lot of jobs in cybersecurity kind of have that corporate environment kind of paradigm, and ICS is really different, I believe. So can you kind of give us a feel for what the overview of someone doing security analyst work as in the ICS environment would be?
Well, you have to remember that companies with OT or ICS environments, they're actually companies. So they typically have a corporate network, already corporate infrastructure, whether it's at one location, like a warehouse or a plant, or whether it's spread off across multiple plants. Example would be distilleries. Distilleries don't just have one place where they brew whatever they're brewing. They'll have multiple locations where they're doing brewing. They'll have multiple locations where they're doing bottling and shipping and so forth. And so some of these companies will have those plants, but they'll also be tied to a corporate environment. And so that's a part of the challenge that these organizations have, is that information security professionals, we're used to the corporate environments. We're used to locking those down. We're used to understanding how to leverage those technologies and how to protect them, or at least how to approach it. And then, but when you throw in the OT or the ICS part of it, that interaction, that connectivity, and so forth. Because they're businesses, they need information out of these areas.
I wanted to ask kind of what prerequisite skills someone might want in order to kind of get into this particular type of job?
The skills are the same for when you're coming from a business environment, from the corporate environments. The same type of technologies are going to be found within an OT or an ICS. There's just going to be more things, and there's going to be special consideration around those. So while the skill sets are still the same, if you're thinking about the security of the operating systems, whether they're Windows or Linux, security of web servers and databases and so forth, all of that's going to be consistent. So where the issue comes in is the technologies that are associated with the industrial controls. There are different protocols that aren't usually leveraged. Most information security people are used to things that are, HTTP, HTTPS, and so forth. But then in the industrial controls, there are a lot of other protocols that are designed specifically associated with the requirements of the process. And they might not have some of the security considerations that we would deem necessary for anything that's communicating across the internet or within our corporate environments because of certain things like timing, of the communications, whether it's timing across the network or whether it's on the actual device processing those decrypting and encrypting packets do take time, processing power, and so forth. And so those would be additional considerations. The people that are coming into this, they need to understand that. They need to understand the differences, and that the process has requirements that drive the technologies that are within it. So they need to come in with patience and understanding rather than just saying, hey, this is unencrypted or this is insecure, we have to shut everything down. That's just not going to happen.
So, for someone who's already working in information security, who is interested in taking on a job like this, I mean, would you recommend?
Not only are there different terminologies and different types of technologies, and whether it's how things are set up to communicate, how things are set up to process and send information from one area of a business to another, or even to another business. If we were talking about regional SCADA, it might be inter-business communications. And so understanding that, also understanding the different protocols. How to get that is really, I mean, there's a couple different ways. Certainly the best way is, and the way that most of the people that I've interacted with in this community have told me is that the people that are coming in need to go talk to the people that are implementing the process, the operational technicians. Those are, there are specific roles. There's process engineers, there's the field technicians. So process engineers understand everything about the process, the requirements, and so forth. Field technicians will be helping with the deployment of the devices that are out in the field, their maintenance support. Operational technicians actually monitor the process, monitor the devices, and take action on things as the processes are going on. And then also programmers. When we talk to all those people and they start talking about like, hey, this, information security people are coming in, they're like, hey, come talk to us, learn about our process, learn how we're doing things. Because as I mentioned, I'll go back to the distillery. One plant, you can have two different plants that are doing the same thing, okay, processing alcohol. But because they were built at different times, they might have been a company that was purchased. It doesn't mean they're set up exactly the same way. There are going to be differences. It might be completely different, or it might be subtle differences. And understanding why something was deployed a certain way, you have to talk to the people that are actually implementing it. So that would be one of the ways without training. In other words, self-education, understanding the team. The other is I'm an instructor, a SANS instructor for the Industrial Control Systems 410 class, which is basically an introduction both for the OT people, introducing them to security concepts, but IT people introducing them to process concepts as well. And so that's a part of that. When we're talking about the terms, when we're talking about the devices, when we're talking about the protocols and so forth and how they're implemented, that's covered in the ICS 410 class.
So if you were working in this environment, or you drive your career there, what kind of career path options might one have?
If you're interested in working in the ICS industrial control systems arena, then start looking at organizations that have those type of devices, whether it's distribution. There's a whole lot of different industries or sectors. There's gas and oil, there's medical, there's food and beverage, there's utilities, and typically people just get jobs in those arenas. They get hired for the security teams, and then they're just kind of thrust into the environment. I'm a big fan of on-the-job training, and just finding an employer that does that. So if when you ask the question, how do I specifically get into this? You could look for those types of jobs, but certainly if you're just coming into the field, if you're just coming into information security, my recommendation would be just to get an actual job with the areas, learn some of the basics around the different technologies. Those technologies are going to build upon your ICS, are going to be implemented still within the ICS environment, and it's just the OT part, the process part that you won't know about, but everything else will actually play into it.
The best part? What's the pro of focusing on ICS in your opinion?
Well, it's because I'm part of the SANS program. I deal with people that are actually a big part of a lot of organizations working for the utilities associated with NERC, and a part of the program. The reason why I'm into not only the SANS program, but also in this article, is because it makes such a big difference on everybody's lives. You actually, when we're talking about OT, ICS is actually where the physical world meets the digital world. So if things happen, then you're either impacting a large area of that industry, and potentially all the way up to impacting lives, having a positive impact on lives. And that's what that really is why I'm into this, is because I can have such a big impact with my knowledge, that I've gained over the years. I can provide it back into this industry.
What's the biggest con, or kind of downside if you're in that space?
It's complex. I mentioned the fact that you with two different plants, and they're implemented completely differently. And so you might approach and secure one plant, or one area of a plant, one process within that plant, but then you've got to do something. You got to figure out something completely different for another process, and for some other location, and you need to express that up through management, that understanding, so you get funding to make positive impacts. So this takes a lot of time. This takes a lot of planning. And while that planning's going on, a lot of things can be extremely vulnerable, and it's frustrating. You want to take action, you want to have a positive benefit, but this is definitely an area that change can be slow. You might identify things that need to be secured, but they won't be changed for 3 or 4 years, or even longer, because of the cost just associated with testing that environment, to ensure that it works properly after making a modification. So it's that can be the most frustrating thing. And patience goes a long way. You have to have a good team, and good leadership that is helping people understand that you need to be patient, and that it will be secured over time.
Really appreciate Don for his time and his perspective on all of these industrial control system security related analyst work. Now, thank you for watching, and again, apologize for the choppiness, but it's just the reality of what's going on. So if you got any questions, put them in the comments below. I'll answer them myself, or I'll connect with Don and get those asked answered. So until next time, stay secure.